The Survivor Tribal Council, the ultimate end to any Survivor episode, resulting in one contestant being voted out and having their torch snuffed. But are things really that simple? In this video we'll be reviewing the 5 most insane tribal councils in Survivor US. This isn't to say these tribal councils are my favourite or are the most fair. In fact, a lot of these tribal councils we'll be covering can actually be argued as unfair. To count as an insane tribal council, I had 3 criterias. Firstly, the dynamics coming into the tribal council had to be as spicy as Jeff in the latest episode of Survivor 46. I already want to be excited coming into tribal. Secondly, I want there to be action at tribal councils, such as theatrics and some craziness where you're playing it up for the camera a bit. As a result, for this criteria, while not intentional, all these tribal councils are going to have at least one advantage used because, well, advantages make for good TV. Finally, and probably the most important, is I need the voting results to be pretty crazy, as having an insane lead up to the vote, only for it to end in a near unanimous beatdown, can be a letdown. This final criteria knocked quite a few tribal councils out of contention that you may expect to be on this list, like the Edge of Extinction Final 11 round. You know, that one where the live tribal council took up half the episode. As for this video being a top 5, there will be probably an insane tribal council I missed, so let me know what tribal council you found pure insanity that I didn't cover, and if this video hits 250 likes I'll do another tribal council related video. A rock draw occurs in Survivor when a tied vote happens, and then ties again on the revote. But even after that, the contestants are given the chance to verbally agree on a consensus target before taking fate out of their own hands and into a bag of rocks while hoping not to draw the odd coloured one. Because of the many boxes that need to be checked for this end result, it's no surprise that out of the hundreds of tribal councils, it's only happened 3 times. Therefore, I present Millennials vs Generation X with a massive 10-man rock draw. After the eliminations of Michelle, Taylor and Chris, 2 warring factions began to emerge, with David and Zeke as the figureheads. The 2 had thrown the odd metaphorical rock at one another allies in previous rounds, but ultimately were able to come together to reach an assumed consensus. Not this time though. Jay wins immunity, giving Zeke's alliance an instant advantage in rocks, as he has full safety until the final 9. This ideology of Zeke's alliance trying to tip the scales in their favour is further evidenced by a plan spearheaded by Sunday, wherein she fakes saying Ken's name to her alliance to burn a suspected idol. This is really an underrated move in the Survivor lexicon, as in spite of David Wright being considered a great Survivor player, and with good reason, he burns his idol on Ken instead of the opposition's target Hannah. So of the 2 factions of 5, we have a deadlock tie between Zeke and Hannah forcing a revote. This is usually the part of the game where someone backs out. After all, it's the last opportunity you, as an individual, have the power to potentially change the entire tribal council. But it's another tie at 4-4, with everyone voting the exact same. While Season 38 is regarded as the first live tribal, this is pretty close, involving a lot of intermingling between the 2 sides to agree on a unanimous target, but with neither side willing to budge, everyone except Ken and Jay due to their immunity, and Hannah plus Zeke due to gaining immunity through the vote tie, must all draw a rock from the bag. It turned out to be Jessica who drew the odd coloured rock, which caused her to be understandably emotional, although at least this cast made a tribal council for the history books by forcing the biggest rock draw ever seen. The beginning of the Game Changers finale was rather insane, and its final 6 tribal council was one for the history books. Similar to the previous entry, it was a deadlock 3-3 with a lot at stake. At the previous round, Cirie had attempted to use Sarah's steal a vote advantage to actually save Sarah, but it made her come off as untrustworthy, and thus they dumped the majority of the votes onto Michaela, her close ally. Ty was also openly targeting Sarah at the final 7, making her want revenge on him. Ty was known to have advantages though, and refused to give his idols to Brad despite pressuring him, meaning the 3rd member of his group at this round, Aubrey, also had potential protection. However, the other group was surprisingly even more bulletproof. Troyzan found an idol earlier into the season, and Sarah outplayed Cirie by voting her out, but gained her trust so that she could get her legacy advantage. This was extremely useful for Sarah, as the legacy advantage expired at the final 6, which essentially gave her individual immunity. On that note, the final member of this group, Brad Culpepper, was an absolute comp beast. He would go on to tie the challenge record at 5 wins, and this round contained win number 3 at the final 6. So he was also immune. At Tribal Council, after the votes were cast, Ty decides to play one of his idols on himself, starting what the fandom now refer to as the quote-unquote immunity train, with Ty playing a second idol on Aubrey, Sarah playing her legacy advantage on herself, and Troyzan playing his idol. It also created the largest string of immunity-based advantages in Survivor history. In total, Brad, Ty, Aubrey, Sarah, and Troyzan all had immunity, which for the first time ever actually stopped Jeff from proceeding with the Tribal Council. Sarah had received 3 votes, Ty 2 and Aubrey 1, but none of them counted, and the only person who could be eliminated was Cirie, in spite of receiving 0 votes.
Most idols ever played at a tribal, 3. Most people ever safe at a tribal, 5.
This Tribal Council will forever be remembered as the 4th weird elimination of Cirie, on top of her losing in a fire-making challenge with a god idol, a surprise final 3, and getting idled out by a swing vote in Heroes vs Villains, explicitly told pre-season to be wary of her. Sure, this Tribal Council isn't in my top 10 favourites due to screwing over one player, but it definitely fits the insanity criteria. This video is sponsored by Survivor Castaway Island, a game that lets you play Survivor from the comfort of your own home, available on Xbox One, Xbox Series X, PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, Steam and the Epic Games Store. Do you have what it takes to be the sole survivor, or will you be snuffed before the finishing line? Purchase the game for yourself, and see if you have what it takes to earn the crown. David vs Goliath was the first ever season I watched, and still to this day remains one of my favourites, with the final 12 rounds being part of the reason I love this season so much. At this stage we had 7 Goliaths prepared to destroy the minority tribe of 5 Davids that remained. Sure, Carl had an idol nullifier, Nick had his steal a vote, and Davey had his own idol, but they were in a massive hole. One of the Goliaths, Dan, also won the individual immunity challenge that episode, and had not just one immunity idol, but also 2. At this stage of the game, the Strike Force Alliance had at least half of the numbers, and consisted of Mike, Allison, Christian, Gabby, Nick, and Alec. But Mike didn't want to go through with the Strike Force, and decided to stick Goliath strong by instead targeting Christian. While Alec knew this was for the best, he still wanted to give Nick the heads up, letting him know another David, Christian, would be voted out. However, Nick wanted to keep his David numbers, and began plotting with Davey on how to get the most out of this round. Dan was their target, but they suspected he had at least one idol, and he objectively couldn't receive votes due to his immunity necklace, so they had to improvise. Davey stood up and played his idol on Christian, causing Dan to play one of his idols on Angelina, who the Davids threw out as a voting option earlier on in the day. If Angelina was the David's target, as expected, it would be a 0-0 vote wash, resulting in a revote where a David member would get eliminated 7-5. As the 7 Christian votes were negated one by one, followed up by the 2 Angelina votes, it certainly seemed that was the way it was going, until John's name came up. What the Davids had done was create the first minority vote split to outplay a majority idol in a 7-3-2 vote. Nick, Christian and Davey didn't even tell their fellow Davids, Carl and Gabby, about the idol or the vote split plan. It's a trouble that ended up in the history books, and along with the final 11 Tribal Council, it completely flipped the power dynamics. And on the topic of that Tribal Council, let's just talk about the final 11 of David vs Goliath. They used up the second half of the listed advantages in somehow an even more insane result. The Goliaths had lost John, but still had the majority 6-5. Dan still had his own idol, and Alec won immunity at the previous challenge, giving them an innate advantage. However, Carl had the newly added idol nullifier that nobody in the Goliaths knew about, allowing him to kill someone's idol at the voting stage. This advantage was created in direct response to the Game Changers immunity train Tribal Council, as Survivor production wanted lots of idols in the game, but they also wanted contestants to vote. While a good idea in theory, the idol nullifier is also a ridiculously overpowered advantage. So it was kind of like reacting to your house burning down by dousing it out with wood-eating acid. Although if you were in the minority like the Davids, this advantage was pretty useless. Enter Nick Wilson with the steal a vote advantage that allowed him to swing a 6-5 deficit into a 6-5 advantage. As soon as Nick played his steal a vote to take Alison's vote, the Goliaths were shook. Due to Angelina being the vote magnet for the season, Alec and Carl assumed Angelina was the David's target and voted for her. Mike, Angelina and Dan voted for Christian, and everyone else voted for Dan, who attempted to play a second idol for himself. But it got nullified thanks to Carl. This vote was crazy, causing so many fractures between groups, as 3 advantages were played alongside one of the 2 successful idol nullifier plays in the franchise. I previously brought up the final 11 of the Edge of Extinction as a tribal council that didn't fit my criteria, but something that captures the same energy is the final 12 of Survivor 41. I bashed on Survivor 41 a lot, I didn't enjoy the season, and while there certainly are aspects of this tribal council that a Survivor purist like myself dislikes, it also is an insane 17-minute roller coaster. Coming into the merge, the Yase tribe was pretty clearly on the bottom, with even Liana flipping to the majority due to her bond with Shan. This caused Xander, Evie and Tiffany to be the easy targets on the bottom, and this was further accentuated by Evie being the only one as a part of the winning tribe. But Erica smashed the hourglass. Go on, Erica. There it is. This flipped everyone's vulnerability, instead allowing Xander and Tiffany to be immune. Now, Evie was still vulnerable, but Xander had an idol which everyone knew about because that was the mechanic surrounding hidden immunity idols this season. Liana, however, also had an advantage called the Knowledge is Power, which was new and allowed her to take someone's idol or advantage for herself. It was a one-time question, and the contestant couldn't lie. It was extremely overpowered, and so when Liana asked Xander to essentially give his idol to her, it was assumed this would go through as planned. Except, it didn't.
Do you have an idol, Xander?
No, but you can have this fake.
Xander knew about the advantage because Shan asked Liana publicly at the merge, forcing her to tell Tiffany. Therefore, he secretly passed it to Tiffany, allowing Evie assume protection at this round of the game. The majority's plan was foiled, and with Erica, Heather, Liana, Shan, Tiffany and Xander getting immunity because of the hourglass, Ricard winning individual immunity, Evie having an idol by association, and Nasir owning a public idol, this made the options literally Sydney, Danny or Deshawn. The entire tribe then scrambles with whispers surrounding splitting the vote, using extra votes, and even an entire plan to vote for Deshawn from the assays. At the voting booth, Deshawn uses his extra vote to vote for Evie twice, and Xander tells Tiffany not to play the idol for Evie. Sydney, however, had sacrificed her vote for the shot in the dark, a newly added modern Survivor staple that allows a contestant to use their one-time die for a 1 in 6 chance at immunity. Due to the odds of it saying safe being low, Sydney wasn't safe and was subsequently eliminated in a 5-4-3 plurality vote. It's really interesting to think about how many different outcomes happen, then the vote is completely changed. If Sydney voted for Evie, it would have tied 5-5-3 with Evie being eliminated on the revote. If Sydney was immune through the shot in the dark, Evie would have been sent home, unless Tiffany and Xander played the idol for Evie, which would have resulted in Deshawn being eliminated. If we count Mergatory and the Hourglass as twists, on top of the Knowledge is Power, Extra Vote and Shot in the Dark plays, there were 5 twists in effect this Tribal Council, and 3 potential idol plays. Considering episode 6 was a non-elimination episode, and regarded by some to be one of the worst episodes in Survivor history, this episode, or specifically this Tribal Council, really helped flip the dynamics to a more positive outlook for the season. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and comment down below. I know I say it every video, but it means a lot, and if you're in the mood for seeing some of my favourite Survivor challenges, then check out this video that should have popped up on your screen. Nevertheless, have a good day, and peace!